So welcome back. This is the No Mulligans podcast here inside the studio at Franklin Bridge. Our last episodes that we put out were the live episodes on the back porch of Franklin Bridge, which is really cool. Thank you for all of you guys who showed out. We had around like 60, 75 people out there. I mean, it was an excellent night. We had introduced Scott Wilkerson, the putting lab that's here, and we gave away some pretty cool stuff too. So if you guys weren't there, you missed out.
Wilkerson's books are already filling up. Dustin is in the tour shop several days a week, and like I sent in a guy today for a re-grip right after a lesson.
Yeah.
And he had 2 more people walk into the tour shop. Like, it's incredible what's happening here.
It's so cool when you can like have somebody that's hitting in here, be like, we need to make this little tweak to your club, and then we can just go and get it done, and they can play around right afterwards. Like it's pretty incredible what we're building here.
We had the kid I had on that had for a lesson was like had normal size grips, and he's 6'5", 230 pounds, big hands.
Geez.
I'm like, and he's just learning how to play.
Yeah,
so,
we need to get you on the standard
fly.
grips.
Yeah, so that's pretty big for us. So anywho, having all that here, that's great.
We're doing big things at the bridge, so if you guys aren't here, come on out, get a lesson from Scott, go visit the putting lab. It's incredible. But we have 3 special guests on this podcast right here, which if you're watching on YouTube, you're probably already seeing them on the screen right now. And if you're on audio, we're about to introduce them to you. So Scott, why don't you just tell us who we got here and what we're going to be talking about today.
So this is a little bit of a throwback to when we had Ginger Lemm on the podcast.
Yep.
Coach Brown, Coach Lemm.
A legendary podcast, by the way. That was like one of the better ones.
Awesome.
We recorded that one in the old.
Oh, we were in the office.
In the old office.
That was so bad. Oh man. But bringing her back on is great. Like we shot a couple podcasts there. I think that was the first time we were really starting to bring in guests on the podcast. So that was our introduction to that.
Yeah.
So, anywho, we've got 3 ladies with us. I'm trying to figure out how this will look on the screen, but in the top corner is Tanya Olson. She owns RSA Recruiting Consultants, and then you have Mary Swanson. Down in your bottom corner, she's waving at you, and then Ginger. We actually get to see your face this time. It's not just your voice on the pod, right?
I know. I look like a golfer. Just been 3093 in Houston, guys. What?
Oh. Sounds like we need to come visit you.
I know, right? So we've so excited to have them on. We're going to talk college recruiting, junior golf, how to get ready for college recruiting. I know it can be a stressful process for families, for kids, confusing. It can be a lot of work on the instructors and like which direction do we send them. You know, we're obviously with how busy we are, even though we're adding Erica, you know, utilizing their services and their talents and their experience collectively, I think is an absolutely wonderful resource for what's happening. So,
and I can't think of a better spot to be able to do it, right? Because you have everybody here at Franklin Bridge. You got the River Club. You can go get a bucket a day, and then you also have you for the swing. We've got all the club stuff.
Got Elijah
and
on
then
the golf course.
We have the consultants here that can get you ready for hopefully playing at the next level. So, I mean, I just think it's an excellent opportunity for any parents out there who are listening who might be confused, or maybe their kid wants to go play at a high level someday and don't know where to start. This is the place to do it.
And y'all do more than just golf, correct?
Yes, RSA. Our major sports are baseball, soccer, and volleyball are our main sports. But those are professionals. I have 4 other co-owners. I'm the director of golf, so I just do golf. It's what I know. I played D1 golf myself back in the day, so I'm not going to try to do something I'm not very knowledgeable at. So I'll stay in my lane as it comes to consulting.
Yeah, so I think as our reach with the podcast has grown so much, like if you're a parent or you know other parents who have kids that are playing either golf or other sports, not just here locally, I know we have a pretty broad reach now. I mean, we're not even just in the United States anymore. So like if you have a kid that's looking at that process, like their whole company, you just heard it from Tanya, like it's not just golf. We're going to talk golf specific, but like send them, get to hear about who they are, what they do, and definitely the best resource to reach out to, in my opinion. So Robbie came by the other day, Ginger.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he came by and hung out for a day and learned, and it's fun. Robbie's a great kid, so.
He's like another one of our kids, isn't he?
I know. He's a big kid.
He's a big kid.
Well, where do we start?
Where do we Scott start?
Where do we Scott? No. Where do we start here, Scott? I mean, I know that I know a little bit about the baseball recruiting process since I went through it a little bit myself, but I feel like golf, it's very competitive, and where it differs from baseball or any other team sport that you're playing on a team, right?
Yeah.
But in golf, you're having to go do all of this by yourself. So where do we start, and how do we bring these ladies in?
I'm going to kind of give you my take on this whole thing and this whole process, because I've had back in the day, when we were back in Birmingham with Hank, we had a lot of bad taste in our mouth from this type of service that they offer. Largely because it was like, hey, we're going to get your TrackMan data from your tournament, and we're going to send you your scores, and we're going to send this, and it felt very inauthentic. It felt like it was just a quick dollar grab. It just the whole thing was just this isn't golf. The golf community is such a tight-knit community of people. I was like, this just had a bad taste. So we just used to build it that way. And then I heard about what Ginger was doing when she wasn't coaching anymore. And so I was like, well, this is way different. So kind of where I want to start is why you all do what you do, how you got to where you are, each of you individually, and then maybe collectively as a group. But maybe Ginger, will start with you, since you were on the pod before and you kind of shared the heart of what you do and part of your joy of being a coach when you were a coach. So I think the why is really important. It's not just about a transactional thing to get your kids somewhere. It's about finding the right fit for them as a person, for you as a family, there's a right way to do this, and then there's a lot of other ways. And I think they do it right. So I know they do it right.
Coming from a coach who's also brought their program to #1 in the country as well. Am I right in that? Yeah.
Yeah. She moved her way up the leaderboard quite well.
First, let me say thanks for having us on. A lot of the misconception about what we do is that they'll compare us to other so-called recruiting specialists out in the world. What we've done, what I've joined Tanya and Mary, and then Erin, who's another one not on with us, but why I chose to join these ladies is because they were transformational people. They were relationship driven. The heart of what I do this for is so that I can pour into and prevent catastrophes that are life-changing for a young student that gets somewhere and doesn't fit and doesn't play well and doesn't do well academically. And then it just implodes after. I've seen people quit over the years. I've seen them transfer twice. So I think that the relationship piece and making sure that you ask the right questions and pull the right information about goals of the young junior player, because what they shoot is only a starting point. It's only a small component of what you're trying to find a fit for. Is their personality, proximity to home, academics, what the team culture is about. So, that's it in a nutshell. It is all about finding somebody that they can help grow from the coach's perspective, because Mary and I both have so many years of coaching experience. It's so important. I wanted to recruit people that I could assist in that growth process as well as performance. It's not just about golf at all.
I thought one of the neat things, hearkening back to that original podcast, maybe we'll go back and look so that if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll send you the name of that pod so you can go back and watch that with Ginger. But that you mentioned one of your favorite parts of coaching when you were at Mississippi State was you would sometimes find girls that maybe wouldn't fit where you were, but you knew all the other coaches so well and you knew what they were looking for and open, I think you'd be a great fit over here. So I think that's one of the things that golf I think is unique in that way of being able to say, hey, I can move you here. So to hear that relational piece is really huge. So, I've watched students transfer. The transfer portal's so easy now, for kids to do. It's just that doesn't mean that it's good. I think it's necessary at times. But we're trying to prevent that. We want to find you a place to land that you can call home for so many years. I coach a girl at Cincinnati and she loves Cincinnati. She doesn't want to go anywhere. It's I want to stay here. This is my home. These are my people. It's just such a wonderful, when the world around you, all these other teams and players are transferring all over the place, it's like, I actually like where I'm at. That was a good fit. That's what you all do.
And as I reflect back on my experience as a coach, being able to look at GolfStat today and see that Mississippi State won their regional with 4 players that I recruited. Now, I'm not taking any of the credit for performance, but all I'm saying is that obviously something worked with the culture that we had started there to get those commitments, and to watch those girls come in and those 5th-year seniors rise to the level that you had hoped they would. Oh my gosh, that's so incredibly fulfilling. Yeah. I mean, and Charlie and his staff have done an unbelievable job since I left. Of course, they deserve every kudo, but something had to have worked initially for them to feel like Mississippi State and the culture, the community, the support that they get. That's what I want for everybody that we help with our consultancy, is to make sure that it's not just about what golf course you play. It's about the relationships. It's about all of that, all of those pieces.
Yeah. Now, Ginger, you also had mentioned over with Mary, like both of you coached for a number of years. So Mary, if you'll share kind of your experience, why you do it, like maybe your specific piece, or like where you really feel strongly led and how you've helped players, would be wonderful.
Yeah. So like Ginger, I coached for 20 seasons, and I was at many different levels, D1, Power 5.
How many years, Ginger, did you coach?
14.
So 34 years between these two ladies. Like, that's incredible.
And
that's awesome.
Our other partner has over 20 years of coaching in the D1 level also. So
you've got over 50 years?
Yeah.
Like, why would you go anywhere else? That's wonderful. So, anywho, Mary, continue. Sorry to interrupt. I was like, wait a second. That's a big number.
Yeah.
So
like Tanya, played D1 golf, but played in the Ivy League, and certainly, had D1 offers outside of the league. So pretty quickly started my coaching career at the University of Florida. Go Gators.
I don't like that as a Tennessee fan. I don't like that as a Tennessee fan.
I had to throw that in there. I saw your sweatshirt.
SEC, right?
That's right.
That's right, SEC.
But I kind of went home pretty quickly, so I ended up at Yale, the big rival. Took a 5-year break to play professionally, so have worn that hat and had that experience. And then went to probably, if I look back, my best fit. So you talk about fit as an athlete, I think there's fit for coaches too. So for 8 seasons, I was the head women's golf coach at Bradley University, and that's what brings me to meeting Tanya. So I'll get to that in a second. And then I had the opportunity to move our family to St. Louis, a little bit bigger place out of Peoria, and coach at the Division III level at Washington University, which they're in contention for the national championship as we speak. So like Ginger, following some players that I recruited and coached and, cheering them on from afar. So back when I was at Bradley, as a coach, I would get emails from recruiting services, recruiting consultants, and I would read them. But very quickly, I learned that a lot of them weren't doing their research. So I would get a kid whose ACT didn't fit and whose scoring average didn't fit. Delete. Well, I met Tanya. Tanya was out watching players. Tanya was sending me kids who fit. I didn't hear from her a lot, but she took the time to get to know me, my program, what I was looking for, the intangibles, which I'm sure we'll end up talking about. What are the things college coaches are looking for outside of academics and scoring average? And so I could have conversations with Tanya and I'd know, hey, 9 times out of 10, she'd bring me somebody that I would at least do my research on because I knew she did her research. So I left coaching in 2021. I'm working for the First Tee, our chapter here in St. Louis, but quickly.
The First Tee is an incredible organization. So, like, if you're listening all over the country, like, First Tee is an awesome organization. If there's one nearby, you should check it out. So, sidebar, continue.
Yep. All good. And so Tanya and I had kept in touch. I had left coaching. I had a few families reach out to me and say, hey, we think you know something about this recruiting process. You were a coach for a long time. Do you think you can help us? And so I said, well, maybe I'll dip my toe in this. And, happenstance, whatever it may be, Tanya reaches out to me and I'm like, hey, I'm kind of thinking about doing this. She's like, well, let's talk. And so, we kind of reconnected. I met the other owners. And to me, there were certainly the reasons from an infrastructure standpoint and a business standpoint, it made sense to align with RSA. But what sold me was the company's values, the owner's values, the way they do it. We talk about it's personal. Like that's one of our taglines. Every athlete we meet with has a different plan. Every athlete is at a different place. Every path is different. Each kid has different resources, different swing coaches, different, and so we are not a one size fits all. We are, making sure that we are fluid and able to serve the kid where they are in the family and empowering the family. So I think the big thing is what I get a lot of satisfaction out of is helping players to mature so that we can bring them to the office door of the coach and they can take it from there. They can build the relationship. They can have the conversation. They can ask the questions. You kind of chuckle at the first meeting because we kind of test the waters every time we meet with someone for the first time. We ask them one of the questions that they typically would get if a coach was sitting across the table. And, Tanya's really great about rolling it into, listen, this is the hardest it's ever going to get tonight. We're going to keep coaching you through this and helping you through this. So if you're nervous right now, that's fine, because guess what? It gets no harder than today. And so that to me is really rewarding to see the process, to see the evolution of the player, the maturity over time, and to help them just put the pieces together. We talk about each family has a value system. They're going to make decisions based on their personal value system, where they play, what kind of schools they're looking at. And so we provide options and we kind of provide the guidance, but they're the ones who make the choices. And so kind of all of that wrapped together, it's very similar to the things I loved about coaching. There are a lot of things that I was losing love for about coaching, but ultimately the relationships was what drove me. And then this is certainly very relationship driven as well.
I mean, that's so excellent. I feel like the hardest thing is, at least for me, and I think that anybody really in anything that you do, the hardest thing is just taking the first step, right? And so I love that comment as far as like it's gonna get like this is the hardest it's gonna get is right here. So if you can just get over this hump, it's gonna be easy. And I think that getting through a lot of those check boxes, landmarks, whatever you want to call them, only builds more confidence and instills more love for wherever they end up landing. And I think that also going through that journey makes them a better player while they're at that school, knowing that they are also a good fit for that program. And it's not just they wanted me, it's, I wanted them just as much as they wanted me, which I think makes a great fit.
Well, I think that's the customizing, like nobody's the same. Like even for our junior, I mean, that fits our academy and fits who we are and fits how we do things perfectly. Like nobody's fit the same. Even in bringing in Scott Wilkerson, had some awesome conversations with him as our tour fitter of like, you can come in for a putter fitting. You might not have the money to buy a new putter, but we might be able to reshaft, bend, bring in one of the putters. Like there's so many different ways to work this thing. And even looking at junior equipment, like fitting a kid for clubs, like where's their budget? Where are they at? Where, like, what do they need? What do they want? There's just so many like moving parts, and caring for the individual, I think is important. It's like, it's easy to just lump them all in. We'll get everybody's TrackMan data. Everybody gets your swing videos put together in a swing video, and reach out to these 40 coaches. Like that's the easy thing to do, right? Mm-hmm. And that might be a good start, if you got no dollars, like, but that's not how you take care of people. I mean, that's just kind of who we are at the Bridge. And I think that's why, sending everybody we know to them for these types of services is just like, it just fits who we are. And I think we're supposed to take care of people.
And Tanya, I would love to hear a little bit about you and and your role here, but also to speak a little bit on, Scott just kind of mentioned the bare minimum, right? Just recording your swing video and sending it out to colleges. What makes you guys different in what you guys offer? What you guys bring to the table to people who
I love that
who are
question.
working on their game as hard as they can, right? We all know that you got to shoot a low score to get into some of these top schools, but what makes y'all different aside from that as well? Because I think a lot of people, they focus on the scoring average, but then it gets really confusing with how do you get recruited and just where does the crossroads happen?
Right. No, thank you. And yeah, again, thank you for having us on. And I just want to start with saying my heart is so warm the team that we've put together. I couldn't be happier with. Mary, almost 2 years now. Aaron, you haven't met, and Ginger, who's here. We're pushing over almost 80 years of coaching experience. I'm the outlier in that. I come from a different side. I played D1 golf, but I got out of golf quickly after college. I went back into the playing side, 9 USGA events, 2 US amateurs. So I still play and compete, and I know, when my kids and my athletes are nervous on the first tee, I know what that feels like. So, and I think they appreciate that. But love having these ladies alongside of me. Little bit very quickly of my background. I started working with a very large company over 14 years ago, and I quickly realized this wasn't the way I wanted it to be. And instead of, I kept complaining, I kept pushing for change, and it never happened. So ripped off the Band-Aid and said, okay, here we go. And 4 years ago, RSA was born. And the best way, you ask what the differences are, it's like when you walk into a Walmart and you walk into a boutique. So big box store versus boutique style. We are very much boutique. We know every one of our kids. We have Zooms with every one of our kids once a month at the bare minimum. So it is personal. COVID was awesome for us in the fact that it was a game changer for us. I was introduced to a new way of keeping in touch with my kids and seeing them face to face. And I had that one-on-one with them, which is what they value. And, as Mary alluded to earlier, everyone is starting at a different place, and everyone is looking for possibly something different. No one is going to have the same journey. And I cringe when I hear moms and dads saying, well, I heard someone in the fairway talking about blah, 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 and what they're doing with their kid. And I'm like, your path is nothing like that. So, creating your own path for your own child is something that it's our hot button, and it's what we create. As Mary said, and Ginger said earlier, the first thing we do is listen. We sit down and have a meeting. What do you need? Where are your gaps? How can we help you? We never send in mass email ever. It's as it was said earlier, it's delete, delete, delete. So, and we empower the kid and the family. And if we have 2 hot buttons, it's realistic and proactive. You have to be both, and they have to be in tandem. So hope that answered your question.
No, it definitely did. And I think the one thing that people have on their mind when it comes to recruiting, and just making a golf analogy here, is not everybody can be a Jordan Spieth, a Justin Thomas, a Victor Hovland, these guys who just go and play for the big time universities at the very highest level, where they get recognized just purely for how good they are, right? Versus somebody else who might be a really good player at a Division I school, but is not going to be the next superstar on the PGA Tour. I'd love to hear a little bit about how that process is different than somebody who can just go out and average a 68, 67, 66.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, Scott, sorry to interrupt you, but
you're good.
Along
Take
the
it.
same line. So one of my best success stories in 14 years was a young lady that had a 92 scoring average. And we found a D2 school for her, a newer program, and she got 80% scholarship. To me, that was a huge success story. It's not necessarily the guy or the gal that's shooting 68 that all these D1 coaches are after. It's this kid with this amazing passion that wants to play, and no one told them there is a place for me. There's a home for you. You just have to let me know and tell me where your parameters are, and we can help you.
That's really cool
So
because
good. That's like the perfect example, like the perfect explanation that I wanted for that question.
And to kind of give it, like, tie that to Micah, who just won a really big event for us for the BPN stuff, is like he got stuck in a trap at the university he was at with they cut a bunch of funding, and all of a sudden, because he had redshirted his first year, it's like, I got nowhere to go.
But I have all my eligibility.
Like, what do I do? And now he's won, I think, 3 or 4 events in college. He's at a school he loves. Like, he has the ability to move up. There's another young man I've coached in the past who played at a small school, loved the game. He's now going to play at UAB, right? Like, a big uptick. Like, and so just because you don't start at the biggest place doesn't mean you can't go there. We had a guy worked on our staff, Andrew Hands. Like, there's so many options. There's roughly 200 plus schools in each division. Like, there's scholarships out there to get you a good education, and there's a bunch of coaches. There are coaches who aren't great coaches yet in terms of like the known sphere that are great coaches that are intermixed all over the place.
Well, and I can speak to that as a parent too, Scott, because my daughter, who is now going to graduate Friday, but I got to go through it, not just as a collegiate player and then professional, but then recruit everybody on the planet, and then I got to be a mom. My daughter played at a junior college in Alabama, and it was exactly what she wanted. Exactly, she grew there as a person. She was challenged. She had a team. It was the perfect spot for her. So I got to see it from a completely different perspective, but yet there was aid there. She could grow. She could get out from under mom's shadow and be who she was supposed to be and grow in that way. It was ideal. It was ideal.
And you don't get that just by, I shoot the scores and I go to this school.
Absolutely not.
That you might get lucky, right? Just like sometimes people work on their game on their own and use YouTube and get lucky at kind of getting on the right thing, right? Like, that's what I do on the swing side. It's Tanya made the comment about the person in the fairway, saying, I think you should, like, whatever. And drove by earlier today watching, a guy help his wife. And I'm just like, man, just put her in our ladies clinic, spend the $250 for her to be in our ladies clinic. You don't have to coach her. Y'all can go play together because that's why you're both out here. You want to play together. Stop coaching her.
Well, and the one thing, too, that people fail to realize is that, and Coach, you can speak to this as well. Coach Lemm, sorry, we got multiple coaches here now. But Coach Lemm and Coach Mary, you can speak to this as well. But that these programs, these top-level programs, didn't get to where they are just by having their name on the door, right? Like the culture and the environment that these programs make is what makes them great, right? So just because you can go out and average 68 around doesn't mean you're going to be on the number 1 team, because your attitude could be crap, or there could be a way that you practice that's not ideal. And coaches want to protect their program and their culture at all costs. And I think that's something that a lot of people fail to realize.
So I guess that ties into a little bit one of the questions I wanted to answer is like, what are just, you don't have to say everything. One of my favorite things, you try to say everything about anything, you'll end up saying nothing, right? So it's like, what is like one, maybe 2 things other than like the typical score and GPA and ACT scores that coaches are looking for? And maybe on the flip side, the follow-up question to that would be, what should families be looking for? And don't give everything away, but I think what y'all do is special, so don't give everything away, but tell us a little bit.
I'm going to let one of the coaches take that, but prior to that answer, I would like to just interject with, there is so much more that it goes into the recruiting process than what did I shoot and where do I want to be. It's, we do a seminar, it's called Golf by Numbers, and it is truly golf by numbers. How many scholarships? I mean, parents don't know what they don't know. Are you fully funded? How am I getting scholarship dollars? It's more than looking at a golf roster and seeing where you fit in, and keeping in mind, coaches are trying to replace their 1 and 2 player, not their 5 and 6 player. So you get a parent saying, "Oh, my kid shoots 78 in a junior tournament, and this their 6 players shooting 78 don't fit on that team. So it's educating them too. We do a deep dive into that process and all that it entails, and it goes way beyond the superficial layer of where do you want to go.
From a former walk-on here, I can confirm all of that.
That's good.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that go into the process, and I've always said we're great hand holders. We'll walk you through the process, and we're going to be your biggest fans, but going to make sure that you're realistic as we go through this process.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the No Mulligans podcast. Be sure to join in next week for part 2 of this episode.
There's no rule! You lower score. There's one!